105.5 WDHA here on the Jersey Magazine. September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And as you may already know, suicide is the 12th leading cause of death here in the United States. And my guest this morning is Karin Szotak. Karin, good morning and welcome.
Hi, Jim. How are you? And
thank you. I'm fine, thank you. And I must tell you, as we start here, I am blown away by both your resilience and the strength of your faith. It has never ceased to amaze me. Karin's son, CJ, tragically committed suicide about 2 years ago. And watching as you and the rest of your family, as a matter of fact, have navigated through these past few years has been very, very inspirational, Karin.
I appreciate that. It's not like there's much of a choice in the matter. You have to keep going, and the only thing you can do is turn things around and make it, like try and help somebody else that might be going through the same sort of thing.
And you've done that. And I know one of the things that you're doing is participating in a walk, the Out of the Darkness Community Walk. And there's one in Chatham on Saturday, September 17th. You are the team captain for Walking in CJ's Shoes. What are your goals this year for the walk, Karin?
Obviously, the key goal is to raise awareness and then also to raise funds. And so far, our team has raised about a little over $1,000 so far. And we continue to go on. And I post all kinds of information on both my site, my son's site in CJ's Shoes, and also on the Madison community page. And I try and open people's eyes. Many people have reached out to me because they have also suffered some sort of issue regarding the whole suicide, whether they attempted themselves or whether they, have a family member that they've lost, or they also, like some people are just, very sad and depressed, and they're worried about other people in their family and stuff like that.
One of the things that I saw you post recently was related to age groups, 10 to 14 and 25 to 34. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for those two age groups. And then 15 to 25, it's the third leading cause. Why do you think this affects young people so much?
Well, one of the reasons is because in this day and age, you have the whole social media aspect, and people are just, wondering what's going on. I also believe that the young people, their brains are not developed enough. So, I mean, you talk about like the 12-year-olds, I mean, they're barely outside the womb, basically. And, they really don't have any idea, and they don't know really where to get help. And I think that that's part of the problem, is the stigma that has surrounded depression and mental illness. And I'm glad that we're finally starting to break down that stigma. So
you mentioned social media, and obviously when you and I were kids, that was not a factor at all, but bullying is not new. It's been going on forever. How much of a factor do you think social media is with regard to those statistics with younger kids?
I think I think it's a high factor. I wouldn't say it's like the most important, but I know like many people will poke fun at you. I mean, think about Mallory. I mean, what she did, and it was all about bullying, and it was on social media. It was also not on social media. And I just think the bullying nowadays that involves social media is just out of this world. I mean, it's just it doesn't stop. And I even see bullying on with adults. I mean, with the social media, people are like if it's a different political affiliation, if it's something like that, it's just, we just have so much of social media that it's not even worth, it's like crazy. Sorry. Just like...
That's quite all right. No, because I've been on, there's one of the Madison Facebook pages in particular that gets pretty riled up politically. So
yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Your daughter, Allie, wrote something shortly after CJ died, and she said, We saw the signs that everyone preaches. We went down avenue after avenue, searching for help, answers, and hope. The mental health system essentially gave my brother the go ahead to end his life, so long as he kept quiet about it. In the 2 years since CJ's passing, how much, if at all, has that changed?
I believe, well, the mental health system has definitely improved. There is, like, what happened with CJ was he was sent to the hospital, and like back in June, and they let him go. Like, he knew what to say to get out. And no matter what we tried to do, and we tried many avenues, we had different doctors and therapists and all kinds of um, all kinds of help out there, but nothing has actually. He wouldn't tell anybody. So if you don't tell, if somebody says, "Are you thinking about hurting yourself?" and you say no, then they say, "Okay, thank you." You know,
Right.
like, and you know, that same thing. And I had texts that people had sent me that said he said, "I'm going to kill myself tonight," and I gave that to the doctors, and they were like, "Okay, well, we talked to him today, and he's fine." I was
Wow.
like, "Okay." I don't know.
Yeah, I was just talking with my son. My son Matthew and CJ, of course, were classmates together at Madison High School, and there's a history of mental depression in my own family, and I've been pretty open with all three of my kids about that. And I mean, even 2 years later, and Matt and CJ were not very, particularly close. They had some classes together, and as athletes, I think they hung out a little bit. But he's still trying to come to grips with exactly what happened to someone basically his own age.
Yeah. And I think when this first happened, there was a huge swarm of the students in his class that all were trying to reach out to each other and say, if anybody is feeling sad or depressed, you could call me anytime. You could do this. Like, I think it did shock the community quite a bit, because CJ, as a young child, he was perpetually happy. You walk around, you'd have a biggest smile on his face. It was around the age of 12 or 13 that he started to develop problems, and he started with an eating disorder that got diagnosed when he was going on 13, and he had to be hospitalized for almost 6 months with regard to that. And that just led into other areas of depression. I mean, the other problem is that, when kids go around other kids who are depressed, and they do recommend groups and stuff like that for this, they learn from these other kids. Like, my son, when he was 13 years old, he was in this hospital for the eating disorder. And as they're eating dinner, somebody says, look away. And everybody's like, what? And then the person used a knife and started cutting themselves. And
Wow.
it was just, it like, the people are afraid to talk about different things. I've lost friends because of my insistent that I'm not going to shut up. And I don't obviously, when we go out on a boat or go to a restaurant, I'm not sitting there talking suicide or anything like that. But there are moments where I do let it out, and if people can't handle that, well, that's their problem, not mine. So
Karin Szotak is my guest this morning here at 105.5 WDHA on the Jersey Magazine. And again, September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. You alluded to this a little bit earlier in our conversation, Karin, about the stigma of mental health. What do you think? Because it's on social media a lot, end the stigma. You see that hashtag a lot. What do you think it'll take to finally, ultimately end that stigma of mental health issues?
I wish I had the answer to that. I don't. I think that one of the things is that people have to be well aware. I mean, one of the things that I like is that just this past year they developed the 988 number, and so that's one of the things that has come out of it. but I think that I'm not sure if it actually can end. In all honesty, because like if people are afraid to talk to each other, or afraid to open up because they're afraid, either somebody's going to report them or something like that, or they're afraid that, like some people want help but really don't want the kind of help that's out there. Sometimes they'll say, I just want to be with my friends, or I just want to tell my friends, or whatever. And if the friends don't feel comfortable telling other people, then that person can't be saved. So I really think that the one thing is, when people are showing signs, and there are definitely distinct signs, that people who see these signs should really go out and try and help these people. That's like the key thing.
You mentioned the signs, and I've had a couple of either friends or acquaintances who have either committed suicide or have lost a family member. And there was one in particular. In fact, he lived here in Madison for a while. His music I've played for years here on WDHA. And I asked one of his very, very close friends after he had committed suicide, did you know? Did you see it coming? And he said, we knew that he had had some mental health issues. He was dealing with it. He was in therapy, seemed to be doing fine. But, and he then said, I look back on his songs and his lyrics, and he said, it was there. And, we just didn't catch it in time. In fact, one of the last phone calls that he had with this particular musician was, hey, we got a project coming up. We'll get together soon, type of thing. So even though some of those signs are visible, you don't always catch them in time.
Right. And that's what's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that people, like, I actually did see the signs and I tried to get him help. I mean, what I didn't do was I didn't follow him every place he went. Okay. Obviously, if I had saw where he was going and saw where he was, I would have gone there. But he was 19 years old. That's the other problem with mental health. Okay. One of the big issues is, once a person becomes over 18, the parents cannot do anything medically because of the whole laws and the HEPA laws. And so I was trying to fight to get him help, and if he doesn't want it, they can't give it. And it was so frustrating to try and even get him help, because it was easier when he was 12 years old and we were in charge. But if the person is over 18, it's it's up to them, unfortunately.
You mentioned the 988 number just a few moments ago, and I do want to emphasize that if you or someone is experiencing a mental health crisis, you can call or text that number. It is relatively new, as you said, but it is 988, and you should do that immediately. Don't wait, because what the consequences can be. Karin Szotak, my guest this morning on the Jersey Magazine at 105.5 WDHA. We talked about the Out of the Darkness Community Walk, which is Saturday, September 17th at Cougar Field in Chatham Township. Karin, for WDHA listeners who want to learn more about that walk or maybe contribute, how do they do that?
Go to afsp.org, and you will definitely be able to look up the community walks. I post my link to my page on a daily basis. So, and I posted on Madison Community, as well as my site, as well as CJ's site, and all the CJ site and my site are public, so anybody can go to them. Walking in CJ's shoes, or Karin Szotak.
Karin Szotak, thank you so much for joining me this morning here on the Jersey Magazine, and best of luck with this walk this year and in going forward as well.
Thank you. This is the third year that we're doing it, and I'm just glad that we can actually help raise awareness and raise funds for AFSP.